Hello everyone, welcome to Cinematic Recaps. Today I'm going to talk about a 1996 science fiction action film called Independence Day by director Roland Emmerich. Spoilers ahead, so buckle up as we dive in. The movie begins on the 2nd of July with a flying object orbiting space. The object's pulsing signal is picked up at the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute in New Mexico. The person in charge hurriedly calls his boss, who is not very happy to receive the call. When he plays the sound from the signal, the boss, hearing the sound, hurriedly wakes up and hits his head. At the institute, everyone is in awe to receive a radio signal from another world. However, as they begin investigating, they discover that the signal did not originate from another planet, but from the moon. They immediately inform Space Command at the Pentagon. At the Pentagon, radar reception is impaired, but they manage to find out the object is 550 kilometers in size and has a mass 1/4 that of the moon. Shocked by their findings, General Gray calls the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Nimziki, to get in touch with the president and inform him of what's happening. At the White House, President Whitmore is seen talking to his wife, who's in Los Angeles for an interview. She asks to speak to their daughter, and the president passes the phone to her as he steps out. As the president walks to get breakfast, he hands George his staff a newspaper and greets Constance Spano, or Connie, the White House communications director, who happens to be David Levinson's ex-wife. She informs him that he has been voted one of the top 10 most handsome men of the year. He considers it an accomplishment and blushes. Just then, one of the White House staff informs him that the Secretary of Defense is on the phone, and he goes to take the call. Later, we see David Levinson, an MIT-trained satellite technician who works for a cable company in New York, at the park playing chess with his dad Julius as they discuss his personal life. When David gets to work, he's told they've been receiving multiple calls due to satellite distortions. As he tries to understand the problem, he finds it difficult to believe. Next, we see Lucas, a local farmer, talking to Miguel Cass about his father Russell Cass, a former fighter pilot and war veteran who resigned from the force after claiming he was abducted by aliens who conducted multiple experiments on him and abused him sexually. Russell is now a crop duster and works for Lucas. Lucas says that Russell has not dusted his fields for days and warns that if he doesn't complete the job, he'll find someone else. Miguel then goes to find his dad, but sees him spraying a different field because he is drunk. The alien mothership deploys dozens of smaller saucer-shaped spacecraft onto Earth. At the White House, President Whitmore and other high-ranking officials, seeing that the object has rendered their satellites unreliable, hope it might pass by Earth or target ICBMs to blow it out of the sky. But then they realize this is a bad idea, as the falling ship will split into many smaller particles and cause greater destruction. A military commander then walks in and informs them that the alien ship has settled in a stationary orbit, but 3 dozen smaller ships, each about 15 miles in width, are making their way to Earth. Hearing this, the president orders DEFCON 3. Back at the cable company, David tells his boss that he has identified the problem. It's not their equipment, but a rare signal embedded in their satellites. He tells his boss he can fix it, and the boss is excited to hear the good news. In Iraq, people spot an enormous storm of clouds moving toward them and start running to safety. Back at the White House, there is a lot of tension as people report sightings of the moving clouds in major cities like Moscow and New York and the Pacific Ocean. The White House then sends pilots into the air to investigate and see what's in the moving clouds. The pilots have no visual as the atmosphere is dull. As the pilots get closer, they encounter a cloud of flames and are engulfed by it. The White House decides to move the president to a secure location to maintain a functioning government in the crisis. But he decides to stay and asks Connie to initiate the emergency broadcast system to reduce panic in the cities. At David's office, everyone is ushered to an old bomb shelter in the basement for safety, but he chooses to stay back. Russell is at a local coffee shop when his colleagues at work walk in and make a mockery of him for dusting the wrong field and claiming to have been abducted by aliens. He ignores them and walks toward the door. Just then, everything starts vibrating as if there is an earthquake. They look up and see a saucer-shaped object flying right above them, causing widespread panic and street accidents throughout the city. In New York, Captain Stephen Hiller, a Marine FA-18 pilot, sees his neighbors preparing to leave and assumes they are scared of an earthquake. He steps out to grab the newspaper and hits his legs on his son's bike parked on the walkway. He picks up the newspaper and notices a helicopter flying overhead. Looking up, he is shocked to see the massive flying object in the sky. Meanwhile, David, seeing the massive flying object, realizes the signal they received was from it and rushes back to the office. There he meets his boss and explains that the signal is a countdown and that, like a game of chess, the alien ships are strategically positioning themselves around the world, waiting for the right moment. He explains that when the signal goes off in 6 hours, it will be checkmate for Earth. His boss, overwhelmed by this information, panics and decides to call and inform his brother. Just then, the president appears on TV to address the nation about the situation, while David calls his ex-wife Connie and tells her to leave the White House because she is in great danger, but she dismisses him as being paranoid and ends the call before he can say anything more. Back at home, Captain Stephen prepares to report for duty at El Toro, but his girlfriend Jasmine thinks it is the wrong thing to do at such a time and urges him to call back and cancel. To make her feel safe, he tells her to pack a bag for herself and her son to come stay with him at the base. Later, David visits his dad to seek his help to drive to Washington, D.C. and save Connie. On their way, his dad tells him it will be impossible for them to get into the White House and speak to her, but he assures him he has a plan. At the White House, the president calls his wife in Los Angeles and tells her to fly out of the city for safety reasons. She promises to leave as soon as she is done with her interviews. Back at home, Russell's two boys, Troy and Miguel, watch the news about their father's past story where he claimed to have been abducted by aliens. The eldest son, Miguel, then decides to take his siblings somewhere safe. As they drive their camper van out of the campground, they see their father waving at them. Miguel steps out to tell him they're leaving without him, which sparks a big fight as the two begin to argue about it. Captain Stephen arrives at El Toro and walks into the dressing room, where he sees a mail from NASA stuck to his locker. He removes it and gives it to his friend to read. A tiny box then falls off Stephen's jacket. As his friend bends to pick it up, he realizes it's a wedding ring and reminds Stephen he had said he'd break things off with Jasmine. This is because he can never fly a space shuttle if he's married to an exotic dancer, but Stephen tells him her love for dolphins is something he can't explain. Back at Jasmine's strip club, her friend prepares to join a bunch of UFO fanatics gathered on rooftops in downtown Los Angeles to welcome the space visitors. She tells her friend she has a bad feeling about it and urges her not to go. As David and his dad drive down to Washington, David takes out a disc, which he tells his dad it's every phone book in America, and inserts it into his laptop. As his dad loses focus on the wheel trying to listen to him explain, they get into a near miss. David and his dad arrive at the White House, and he tries calling Connie, but her line is busy. He then decides to use a device that allows him to use her signal to triangulate her exact position in the White House. He successfully reaches out to her, asks her to act normal, and walk toward the window. She sees him and his dad waving at her from outside. At the Air Force Base, Pentagon officials retrofit a Skylift helicopter with a visual communication device and enormous light panels to try and establish communication with the spacecraft. At the White House, Connie invites David and his dad to meet with the president and present their theory. Connie is doubtful the president will agree to meet with them, since David had slapped Mr. Whitmore, who was then just a private citizen, believing he was having an affair with his wife Constance. When the president arrives and sees David, he's hesitant to leave, but David's dad rushes to greet him. Connie urges David to explain his theory, and he does. He explains that the satellite disruptions are due to the alien mothership using Earth satellites to send signals to their smaller ships across the planet. The signal he picked up was a hidden message being sent from the alien mothership, indicating that the aliens are using their own satellites against them. The president then walks back into the room and tells General Gray to communicate with Atlantic commands to evacuate as many people from the cities as possible. Meanwhile, the helicopters sent to establish communication with one of the saucer-shaped alien ships report back. Seeing something opening on the ship, they assume it is a response. To their greatest surprise, the ship launches missiles and blasts the helicopters out of the sky. This incident triggers an immediate evacuation from the White House and all of Los Angeles. Jasmine's friend from the strip club arrives on the roof to join the UFO fanatics in welcoming the alien visitors. The ships open up, and they all think it's something beautiful and that the aliens are answering their call. Meanwhile, the president and his associates board Air Force One to safety. The timer hits 0, and the ships immediately send out a destructive beam, causing serious explosions around the cities and killing thousands who are stuck in traffic. Jasmine, her son Dylan, and their dog Boomer, who are stuck in traffic, manage to escape the blast by hiding in a small concrete room inside the tunnel. It's July 3rd. Russell and his children, who ran to safety, hear over the radio that Los Angeles, Washington, and New York have been left in ruins. As they drive on, they spot a settlement with many survivors living in peace. On board Air Force One, the president is in sorrow over the death of millions and tells Connie that they could have evacuated the cities hours before the explosions. In Los Angeles, Jasmine, Dylan, and Boomer, who had hidden in a concrete room underneath the tunnel, come out to see the city in utter ruins with no signs of life. Meanwhile, in El Toro, the United States Black Knights fighter pilots prepare for a counterattack in Los Angeles. Captain Hiller and his team take off to battle. During the flight, Captain Hiller tells his friend he regrets leaving Jasmine, but his friend reassures him that she likely escaped Los Angeles before the attack. As the fighter jets approach the ship, they fire their missiles, but none get through, as the ship is protected by force fields. They fire again, but still cannot penetrate the shield. The aliens then send out smaller fighter ships that begin destroying the jets of the Black Knights. As they incur heavy losses, the president orders them to fall back to their position and abort the mission, but the information doesn't reach the pilots as the aliens have disrupted the transmission signals. The alien fighter jets then attack the Air Force Base in El Toro, destroying the jets on base and killing many people. Captain Hiller continues to evade the alien ship pursuing him in the Grand Canyon when his jet suddenly runs out of fuel. He deploys his jet's parachute, which drapes over the alien ship and obstructs its visibility, causing it to crash. The captain ejects from his jet and lands a short distance away from the crashed alien ship, angrily walking towards it. He then punches the alien in the face. In Los Angeles, Jasmine finds a truck that survived the explosion, gets in, and starts it up. She's relieved that it still runs. At the campground, Russell's youngest son is ill. His brother Miguel goes out to get medicine but finds none. He returns and tells his dad the other campers are leaving. Russell agrees it's time for them to leave with the others. Just then, his daughter's crush hands her a bottle of penicillin, saying it will help keep her brother's fever down. Her father disapproves of the young man, telling him to leave. On board Air Force One, David gets airsick and rushes out to throw up. Connie approaches David's dad and tells him she didn't get a chance to thank him for coming to save her. His dad says that all David could think of was getting to her. He tells her that he believes there's still love in her heart. She tells him that love was never a problem. The president and two other officials discuss launching another counterattack with a full nuclear strike. The president questions a nuclear strike over American soil. Just then, a soldier walks in and tells them the aliens have taken out NORAD. One of the officials tells the president that the best course of action is to launch a nuclear strike. David, who had heard them speak about it, walks in and disagrees, saying that a nuclear strike will be the end of life as they know it. General Gray tells him they were unprepared for the attack. David's dad, Julius, walks in and reminds them of the spaceship they found in Roswell, New Mexico in the 1950s and the bodies from the spaceship hidden in a bunker at Area 51. The president tells Julius that despite what he might have read in the tabloids, there is no Area 51 or recovered spaceship, but one of his officials confirms that the old man is right. As Jasmine and other survivors from Los Angeles drive to find sanctuary in El Toro, they come across a priest who tells them to repent, for the end has come. Jasmine tells him to hop on, but he chooses to stay. They then find a wrecked helicopter and discover survivors, including the First Lady. Captain Hiller drags the alien he knocked out through the desert on his parachute. Exhausted and angry, he kicks the lifeless alien body. He then sees a fleet of cars driving towards him and calls out for help. He encounters Russell and asks him for help getting to a military base nearby. Russell checks his map and tells him there's no military base nearby, but the captain tells him he's certain of it. The president and his associates arrive at Area 51 and are introduced to Dr. Okun, who has been heading the research department for the past 15 years. He is excited to meet the president and takes them to a secret lab, showing them the spaceship they found 40 years ago. He explains that the ship has been dormant for years, but has shown activity in the last 24 hours since the aliens arrived. Dr. Okun also explains that the aliens are not so dissimilar to humans, as they breathe oxygen and have a comparable tolerance to heat and cold. He takes them to the vault and shows them 3 alien bodies. He explains they have some sort of biochemical suits and that they communicate through telepathy. The president asks Dr. Okun if the aliens can be killed. Dr. Okun replies that they can be killed, but they need to figure out a way to get past their advanced technology. The president asks David to join Dr. Okun and share his findings to help them outthink the aliens and stand a better chance of winning the ongoing war. Captain Hiller then arrives at Area 51 and seeks entry into the camp. The guard at the gate tells him it's a restricted area and asks to see his clearance. The captain shows the guard the alien he captured as his clearance. The shocked and scared guard then lets the captain through the gates. Dr. Okun takes David to the cockpit of the alien ship and shows him what they've learned from studying the ship. David notices something on the control panel and asks Dr. Okun to grab his laptop. He shows them that the patterns on the control panel are repeating sequentially, just like their countdown signal, and explains that's how the aliens coordinate their ships. Just then, one of the other doctors rushes in and tells them they have an alien that's still alive. They all hurriedly go to see it, leaving David alone in the spaceship. As the doctors and soldiers hurriedly attend to the alien, Russell yells out that he needs a doctor to save his son, but no one seems to be paying attention. He then gets angry, grabs one of the doctors by the collar, and slams him against the wall. The doctor then agrees to help save his son's life. General Gray confronts the Minister of Defense, who was the former head of the CIA, blaming him for not informing them about Area 51 in time. As the president walks in, General Gray reports that Atlanta, Chicago, and Philadelphia have been destroyed by the aliens, and that NATO and Western Allied installations were the first to be taken out. He continues, saying the aliens knew exactly where and when to hit them, and their forces are down to 15%. The general warns the president that if the aliens continue their attack at this rate, worldwide extinction could occur in less than 36 hours. Captain Hiller is brought in to meet the president, who congratulates him for capturing the alien and goes to see it for himself. Captain Hiller then tells the general he's eager to return to El Toro. The general tells him El Toro has been completely destroyed. When Jasmine and the other survivors from Los Angeles arrive at El Toro, they are shocked to see it's completely destroyed. In the lab, the doctors break the biochemical suit of the alien and are shocked to see the organism within it still alive. The alien regains consciousness and kills the doctors, except for Dr. Okun. When President Whitmore and his associates arrive at the lab, they see Dr. Okun on the other side of the glass window. He asks them to release him, but General Gray stops them because it isn't Dr. Okun, but the alien that had gained control over his body to establish communication with them. President Whitmore then moves forward and asks the alien if they can negotiate a truce to find a way to coexist. He asks if there can be peace peace, but the alien responds, no peace. Again, the president asks, what is it you want us to do? The alien responds, die. The alien then uses its telepathic powers to gain control over the president's mind, wanting to kill him. His associates quickly shoot at it, killing it. Dr. Oken then falls into a coma, and President Whitmore reveals he saw into the aliens' thoughts and got a hold of their plan, which is to travel from planet to planet, kill all life in it, use their resources, and Earth was their next target. The president then decides to nuke the aliens. David, after hearing the president's plan, is overwhelmed by it and decides to take a glass of whiskey when Connie approaches him. At the base, Captain Hiller confiscates a military helicopter to go rescue Jasmine and her son. A soldier attempts to stop him from leaving. The president sends out bombers on another mission to take out the alien ship, with their first target in Houston, Texas. They position tanks on the ground for visual confirmation. One of the bombers fires a nuke at the alien ship, and there's a big explosion. They all applaud in happiness, but are disappointed when ground confirmation tells them the target remains. This drives a wave of frustration, and the president orders the bombers to return to base. Captain Hiller arrives at El Toro and rescues Jasmine and the other survivors who had been stranded. Back at the base in Area 51, the president and his daughter go to see the first lady, who has been admitted for treatment. The doctor in charge tells the president that his wife has suffered serious internal bleeding as a result of the crash, and that there's nothing they can do to save her. Later on, she dies. The next day, July 4th, David, out of frustration, seeing that they've tried everything to fight back the aliens with no success, finds himself drunk from overconsumption of strong whiskey. His dad, seeing him in this state of frustration, approaches and comforts him, saying he needs to have faith and remember what they still have. In the end, he tells him to put on some warm clothes because he doesn't want him to catch a cold. These words immediately trigger a genius idea in David's head, and he rushes to wake Jim up, telling him to assemble everyone. While everyone is assembled, David tells them he has figured out a way to take down the shields protecting the alien ships and shows them a demonstration of his plan. For the plan to work, they need to fly to the alien mothership using the alien spaceship they found 40 years ago and implant the computer virus he's created. The Secretary of Defense, Mr. Nimziki, argues that there's no one qualified to fly such a ship and that they're not certain the ship can actually fly. Just then, Captain Hiller tells them he can fly the ship, and David proves that the ship can fly by removing the clamps that support it. Seeing this, the president then agrees to go along with the plan. In the Iraqi desert, Russia, and Japan, soldiers prepare for battle after receiving information from the Americans via Morse code, saying they have a plan to take down the shields around the alien ships. At the base, one of the soldiers announces that they're short on manpower and need more people with flying experience. Russell Cass, who wants to have his revenge on the aliens, and a few others volunteer to fight for their planet. Captain Hiller and Jasmine decide to have their wedding before he leaves for his mission. Dylan acts as their ring bearer while David and Constance act as witnesses. The wedding helps the two ex-lovers reignite their love for each other. As the soldiers prepare to join forces from around the world for a great battle, President Whitmore gives a speech to boost the courage of the fighters and tells them this day is the new Independence Day, not just for America, but for the entire world. After the speech, the president gets his flight gear and prepares to board his jet when General Will walks up to him, utterly confused by the president's decision to join the fight. Before they board the spaceship, Stephen and David bid farewell to their loved ones. The atmosphere is filled with worry. Steve hands David a cigar and makes him promise he won't light it until the battle is won. He calls it their victory cigar. He then flies the ship off into space. As they approach the alien mothership, the mothership takes control of their ship and brings them in. Back on Earth, President Whitmore takes command of the jet fighters as they prepare to launch a counterattack on an alien ship making its way to Area 51. Inside the alien mothership, Captain Hiller and David are completely astonished by what they see. Millions of aliens preparing for an invasion. As they get closer, Captain Hiller becomes uneasy. When they settle inside the heart of the mothership, David uploads the virus into their system. Back on Earth, the fighter jets are informed of the good news and prepare to fire. President Whitmore fires the first shot, but it gets blocked by the force field. He then decides to take another shot, and this time it goes right through and blasts the ship. The other fighters join in and begin firing at the ship. The alien ship then sends out its own fighters, resulting in a big battle. The alien ships attack the base where people are preparing to evacuate. On the mothership, Captain Hiller and David prepare to return home, but face difficulties as their ship gets stuck. One of the aliens in charge of the ships notices something wrong and overrides their system. They are forced to hide to avoid being found by the aliens. Inside the underground bunker at Area 51, David's dad urges people to hold hands and pray, while Russell's daughter tells her boyfriend this could be their last night on Earth and she doesn't want to die a virgin. The fighters outside continue to fire at the alien ship, but their missiles don't seem to be causing enough damage. The ship then prepares to fire its primary weapon at the base. The president and other fighters fly towards the opening to fire a missile inside the ship. President Whitmore fires the first shot, but it fails to hit the target and he runs out of missiles. Just then, Russell Cass flies towards him, armed and ready to fire into the alien ship. He locks on the target and fires, but the missile is jammed and won't fire. He asks the general to do him a favor and tell his children he loves them. He then flies his jet into the ship, and as they launch their primary weapon at him, there's a big explosion, and the alien ship is destroyed. Back on the alien ship, Captain Hiller and David light their victory cigars and launch the missile they brought with them from Earth. As the missile flies off, they have 30 seconds before it explodes. Their ship gets loose, and they quickly fly off to stay out of the blast range, but are chased by alien fighter jets that try to shoot them down. As their ship approaches the exit point, the doors begin to close, but they fly faster, narrowly escaping. The bomb timer hits 0 and explodes, destroying the alien mothership. On Earth, people from around the world celebrate a great victory as the alien ships are destroyed. President Whitmore and the other fighters are given a hero's welcome as they return to base. They receive a signal from Captain Hiller and David and quickly rush to pick them up. Jasmine and Constance rush to hug their lovers, and President Whitmore congratulates them for their bravery. They all look up at the crashed alien ship with victorious smiles on their faces. The end. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications as it helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.